Hello again, it's Don with Stocky Stocks. I think I mentioned in the last video that I brought in, when I first started the company, 100 rifle stocks, and some of those were Thumbholes. I wasn't a big Thumbhole fan at the time. You know, I thought they were big. They certainly are heavier than a classic stock. And sticking my thumb in that hole seemed just a little bit unwieldy. But they talked me into it, literally. They told me to give them a try, see what I thought. You know, I didn't have to buy any more if I didn't want to. So I did, and guess what? I loved it. It was one of the most comfortable stocks that I'd ever felt. It was easy to shoot. It gave me great trigger control. It seemed to recoil less. My 300 mag was recoiling like a 308 because of the design of the stock and the weight of the stock. So I became a big Thumbhole believer at that point. So boom, stock magically appears in my hand. This is one of the first stocks that we ever carried. It's a functional stock. Some of the things I didn't like about it were the butt pad, nothing fancy. For just a few dollars more, you can get a real recoil pad, and I don't need to tell you the advantages of that. Number two, the finish. Yes, the finish is rather dull, but it also seems to be very thin. In other words, to me, you can see the wood grain is not very far underneath the finish. That means the finish has not been applied, you know, very thickly. So what that means is less water resistance than I would have preferred. Enter the KSA Thumbhole. Packmar Decelerator recoil pad. In my opinion, a much better finish. Thicker than what you'll find on some of the cheaper stocks out there, and just a very functional and usual gun stock. Thumb fits nice and comfortably into the thumb hole. Note, you don't want to jam your knuckle in there. You just want to leave it kind of like a pistol grip. Just pretend the back part of the thumb hole here doesn't even exist, and that's how you shoot it. Then I started thinking, you know, when you have a completely wooden stock, it really could use bedding. Because what happens, especially in some of the heavier recoiling calibers, is when you tighten your bolt action, your barreled action into the stock and the floor plate, there's a certain amount of compression that takes place here, even between, on a laminated stock, between the receiver and the floor plate. So every time you pull the trigger, that rifle is trying to come out of the stock, and the stock's trying to hold it in. Okay? Now, obviously, that can loosen up considerably with time. It's subject to shifting. It's subject to, you know, water content, which makes it swell or contract, etc., etc. So one of the things we used to do to alleviate that is drill holes, 9/16" holes right here, and install the pillars that you see on the website. That eliminates the compression. And when you do that, we used to also bed this part right behind the recoil lug, the first couple inches of the barrel. And if you put a pillar back here, you really don't need to bed it. If you're just doing a glass bedding job, then yes, you should bed it back here. Okay, but not everybody wants to do that. Most of us are strapped for time these days. We're out there living our lives. We want to go on our hunts, okay? We just want to get a rifle stock that makes our gun more usable, more stable in inclement weather, and more accurate, okay? So about 5 years ago, we started development with Remington and finished it with Revolution. You might have heard about the Bobby Hart AccuBlock. This is a solid machined aluminum block, inletted into the stock, with pillars completely through and through the stock on the bottom. So you get a situation, and we'll talk more, we'll do a separate video on the AccuBlocks, of course, but you get a situation where when you bolt your rifle into this and tighten the screws down to 55 inch-pounds, just like you would in a composite stock or an aluminum bedded HS Precision stock, you get much, much more reliability of zero. The gun basically just stays put. And if you read some of the write-ups that have been in the magazines, like Rifle Magazine did a pretty good write-up about our stocks last year, it's just phenomenal. It is a boon to the industry, I feel. Yeah, you know, it's a few bucks more, but I think it's well worth it. Now here's the Long Range Sporter 2.0. You might have seen us just launch this on the website. This is a completely different manufacturer working exclusively for us, an OEM supplier in the industry. You know, we reached critical mass a few years ago, and we now go direct to the people who make these things, who make them for the big factories like Thompson Center, Remington, Winchester, etc. Okay? And these folks are professionals. You give them the specs and they make the stock. Okay? And if you look at this, it's got the best finish in the industry. It's got a nice thick recoil pad. The inletting is clean and precise. Even the floor plates fit. So this is the Long Range Sporter 2.0. This is what a Thumbhole stock is supposed to be.